In today's video, I will be giving you a list of the most expensive Rolex watches ever sold. From the Steve McQueen Submariner to a Rolex that was sold for almost $20 million. If you ask me, I think some of the prices are unnecessary. In fact, all of them are unnecessary, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. Let's get started. Number 10. Steve McQueen's Rolex Submariner, sold for $234,000 in 2009. Antiquorum put together this amazing auction, and guess what? It closed at a jaw-dropping $234,000, setting a record as the highest price ever shelled out for a vintage Rolex at that point in time. Now let's talk about the star of the show, this fantastic Rolex Submariner from 1967. What's the big deal, you ask? Well, this watch once graced the wrist of none other than the legendary Steve McQueen. You know, the iconic actor often hailed as the king of cool during the swinging 60s and groovy 70s. With this Rolex Submariner, he kept his reputation for style and sophistication in check. Fast forward to today, and you can bet your bottom dollar that the value of this Steve McQueen Submariner has skyrocketed over the past decade. Fun fact: another Steve McQueen Submariner was slated to hit the auction block in December 2018, but it got canceled at the very last minute due to a tiff with the McQueen estate. By the way, don't forget to subscribe. Number 9. Rolex Platinum Diamond Pearlmaster, sold for $277,850 in March 2011. Unlike its modern sibling, the Rolex Platinum Diamond Pearlmaster is based on the Day-Date collection instead of the Date-Just. The limited edition watch is made from meteorite diamond and counts 42 diamonds on its custom bezel. The 39mm dial watch was first released in 2011 for $277,850. Number 8. James Bond's 1972 Rolex Submariner, sold for $365,000 in November 2015. We've got another Submariner to add to our collection of the priciest Rolex watches ever sold, and this one's got quite the Hollywood history. This Rolex was actually strapped onto Sir Roger Moore's wrist as he portrayed James Bond in the 1973 classic Live and Let Die. Believe it or not, this iconic timepiece went under the hammer at a Phillips auction in Geneva back in 2015, fetching a whopping $365,000. Now, here's the interesting bit. This watch got a bit of a makeover for its silver screen debut. Specifically, they tinkered with the bezel to make it resemble a deadly circular saw. Bond used it in the movie to cut through a rope with style. And that's not all. This watch's magnetic field came in handy for unzipping Miss Caruso's dress, played by the lovely Madeline Smith. But here's the kicker. After all those movie modifications, this Submariner doesn't do its primary job anymore. It doesn't tell time. However, on the flip side, the back of the watch bears the signature of none other than Roger Moore himself. Number 7. Rolex GMT-Master II Ice, sold for $485,350 in 2021. This Rolex GMT-Master Ice is the watch that football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo wore during the 14th Dubai International Sports Conference. It is the most expensive new Rolex you can buy. It retails for $485,350, but its price might vary depending on the market price for diamonds at the time of your purchase. The Rolex GMT-Master II Ice is entirely covered in precious stones and made from white gold. The dial has an interesting wave pattern of diamonds and gold. The rest of the case hasn't been compromised by the in-house customization. You get all the same features and performance than the modern Rolex GMT2 delivers, including a waterproof case up to 100 meters, 330 feet, and 50 hours of power reserve. The dial featured the classic GMT second hand to set a second time zone. Number 6. Jack Nicklaus Rolex Day-Date, sold for $1.22 million in December 2019. Back in '67, Rolex gifted Jack Nicklaus, the legendary golfer we all know as the Golden Bear, a stunning yellow gold Day-Date. And let me tell you, he didn't just tuck it away somewhere. Nope, he practically made it a part of himself, wearing it day in and day out. This Rolex was right there with him when he clinched a whopping 12 out of his record-breaking 18 professional major championship titles. You know those iconic photos of Nicklaus raising the championship trophy after his big wins? Well, that trusty Rolex of his often stole the limelight in those snapshots. This is the very first watch I ever owned, and the only watch I wore for every professional tournament I've won throughout my career. It has accompanied me at US Opens, Masters tournaments, PGA championships, Open championships, and countless other events for over 5 decades, and has served me well at every step along the way. Number 5. Eric Clapton's Rolex Oyster Albino Cosmograph Daytona, sold for $1.4 million in May 2015. Eric Clapton's Rolex Daytona. They call it the Oyster Albino Cosmograph. Well, that thing didn't just change hands once, but twice, and for some jaw-dropping sums. The first time this beauty switched owners was back in 2003 in New York, and someone shelled out a cool $505,000 for it in a Sotheby's auction. Fast forward 12 years to May 2015, and bam, Clapton's Daytona goes on the block again, this time at a Phillips auction in Geneva. And guess what? It fetched a whopping $1.4 million, nearly 3 times what it snagged the first time around. Now, what makes this watch even more special, apart from the fact that it once graced Eric Clapton's wrist, is that there are only 4 of these babies in the world with a single colored dial. You see, typically, Daytona dials have 2 colors to make the chronograph timers stand out from the rest of the dial. Number 4. Marlon Brando's Apocalypse. Now Rolex GMT-Master sold for $1.952 million in December 2019. This Rolex GMT reference, 1675 worn by Marlon Brando in the movie Apocalypse, now was sold for $1.952 million at a Phillips auction in December 2019. The auction, appropriately named the Phillips Game Changers event, saw the Rolex GMT Master manufactured in 1972 sell well above the expected price. Marlon Brando, an Academy Award winner, wore the watch on a black strap with its bezel missing. Francis Ford Coppola had indeed asked Brando to remove the bezel as it would stand out too much in the movie. The watch is also unique because Brando carved his name on its back. It sold after 15 minutes of intense bidding. Number 3. The Rolex Bao Dai sold for $5.1 million in May 2017. The Rolex Bao Dai is like the rock star of the timepiece world. It's based on the Rolex reference 6062, and back in 1954, it found its first home on the wrist of the very last emperor of the Nguyen dynasty in Vietnam. We're talking gold case, black dial, the rarest combo you could get your hands on. Word has it that only 3 of these beauties ever rolled off the production line, as reported by the folks at Hodinkee. And guess what? This particular one is like the unicorn of the trio because it's decked out with diamond markers on those even hours. Fast forward to 2017, and this watch made history when it strutted down the auction runway at Phillips in Geneva. Brace yourself, it fetched a jaw-dropping $5.1 million. Number 2. The 1971 Rolex Daytona. Reference 626 Unicorn sold for $5.9 million in May 2018. This particular timepiece, known as the reference 6265, stands out as the sole model crafted in 18-karat white gold, earning it the moniker Unicorn. During the same era, the majority of Rolex Daytona watches were predominantly manufactured in stainless steel. In addition to its precious metal composition, the watch's captivating backstory adds to its allure. Prior to its emergence in the public eye in 2013, when the renowned Rolex collector John Goldberger, whose real name is Auro Montanari, acquired it, very few were aware of its existence. Number 1. Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona, sold for $17.8 million in October 2017. Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona is not only the most expensive Rolex ever sold, but it's also the most expensive watch ever sold in the world. It easily beat the previous record set by a 1943 Patek Philippe perpetual calendar chronograph that sold for $11 million in 2016. The opening bid for Paul Newman's Daytona started at $1 million but was immediately raised to $10 million by the first bidder, stunning the entire auction room at Phillips. Only 2 bidders then fought for the watch to finally settle its price at $17.8 million. While relatively well preserved, this Rolex Daytona isn't particularly rare, nor made from precious materials. But its unique story is what watch collectors are most interested in. It was given to Paul Newman by his wife, Joanne Woodward, while he was playing in the movie Winning. So what do you think? Do you think these watches are really worth their prices? Leave your thoughts in the comments section and don't forget to subscribe.